Hi guys, hope you're doing well. This video is going to be on the on Afghanistan crisis, our issues. I mean, it's unbelievable what you see happening. I mean, it's well, it is believable actually when you stop and think about it, because most people predicted this 20 years ago, that you're going into a country to basically nation build, and it's a complete failure. It always has been. Every time they've tried to do it, Vietnam, disaster, Iraq, disaster, Afghanistan, now disaster. Same thing. I mean, it's just a repetitive nature of it, which tells you why in the world, every time somebody waves a flag doesn't mean you go running to that flag. They use patriotism for the masses. It's like opium. They say religion is opium for the masses. No, it's not. Patriotism is. They basically wave the flag and say, oh, these guys are, they use that competitive nature of people. It's like it's competition, us against them. How many people know an Afghanistan person or Afghani who's done anything to you? Most people in America would say, I never even met an Afghan, much less they've done anything to me. Not saying that what happened with the establishment of, the various Islamic terrorist organizations, Al Qaeda and others that thrive in those areas of lawlessness, don't do terrible things. It's going to happen, but you don't invade an entire country, spend trillions of dollars to hopefully find some, a few hundred people scattered throughout this country, hiding away in caves or wherever. It's just a stupid way of using your power, stupid way of basically establishing yourself in the world. Think about how many innocent Afghanis were killed through aerial bombardment and drones and all this other stuff. Their blood is just as valuable as an American's blood. And think about all the mothers and fathers who lost children over there, sending their kids over there to fight, and what they felt was a noble cause. And now just to have people say, it's really not all that important, we're coming home. Let them fight for their own country. Well, if that was the case, why didn't you let them fight for their own country 20 years ago? Americans don't need to go and die in these foreign wars any more than Russians do, or Chinese, or any other person. And if you're a Christian, my goodness, have the common sense not to fall for these, nationalistic type of, UN globalist type of stuff, where they use this to basically get people duped to go and do their bidding, which is really what it is. The only time they like nationalism, when they can pitch you against other people to get you to join, to go and do their fighting and destruction for the globalist agenda, which is really what it comes down to. That's the only time they promote nationalism, is when they can get your children to go and fight these crazy foreign wars. And what I would say is don't, especially if you're a Christian, don't get involved in the politics of it. One of the problems I have with it is that I'll do a video exclusive on that. I've talked about it before. I just should do one exclusively on that point. But Christians, getting involved in thinking that somehow, if you can it's a form of dominionism is what it really is. When it really comes down to it, that's what it is. Basically what you're saying is, and it's a totally false teaching, completely unbiblical, but basically is, if we just elect the right person, if we just get the right people in place, or if we go and fight the right country, that somehow, we're going to establish some kind of, righteousness and goodness in the planet, And I'm talking exclusively for the church. Somehow we're going to bring in Christ's kingdom or something, It's completely false. I mean, it's like, have you never read the book of Revelation? Have you not read any of the prophetic text in which, Jesus tells us about, how things and events are going to unfold that will bring in his kingdom? Well, it has nothing to do with what we as a church are doing to somehow make it righteous. That the world is actually going to become more unrighteous, which we see happening, more lawless, like we see happening. It's not going to be better, it's going to be worse. And, it is absolutely amazing to me how people buy into these lies to the point where they're just completely duped. And in the church, you have so many false teachers that are promoting, what I want to say, Americanism, at least in America. I'm sure they do the same thing in other countries. They do the same thing probably in Russia and so forth. But the thing is, they deceive Christians to somehow pit them against each other. And these pastors are going right along with it because they've been bought and paid for by these people, and these, you hate to say it, but really the intelligence community plays the pastors in these roles, and that's why the professional paid pastors, in my opinion, most of them aren't worth the dollar you're paying them, because they're in many cases they're completely worthless. But they're promoting this form of, in essence, dominionism, nationalism, which they disguise it as, and basically it's the same thing. You basically here you have a duty as a Christian to go and fight for your country. This is a country that promotes every form of depravity you could think of around the planet. Abortion, homosexuality, transgender, all this stuff, forcing this on other societies. And yet somehow you're obligated to go and fight for this kind of depravity to spread it. Humanism, atheism, this kind of nonsense is being promoted by this country everywhere. And yet you got these false, phony pastors out there telling people they need to go join and fight and support and vote for the people who are destroying the world in many cases. And I'm not saying America's alone, because other nations are pretty depraved as well and doing some pretty evil stuff. But I'm simply saying the politicians of this government are horrible. All of them. I mean, just about every one of them. I'm going to say all of them, but most of them are completely in it for themselves. They basically stay up there for 20, 30, 40 years. They don't ever give up their benefits. They fly on private planes by and large. They have a retirement you're never going to have, or I will. They have health care that's better than anybody else in this country. These guys are charlatans that basically prey on other people, and people are so easily manipulated. And you have these false, phony pastors up there saying, yeah, you need to vote for these people, and somehow if you just vote for them, that somehow life's going to be better and you're going to be transformed. We're going to bring in this kind of Christian identity of, Christian America or something. It's going to transform the world. It's like, are you even reading the scripture that you profess to be knowing or preaching about? Because that's not what we see happening. It's just the opposite happens. I see the church removed, in a miraculous way called the rapture. I see the world falling greater into depravity and lawlessness. I see evil expanding. I see a rise of a one world leader and dictator who's going to control, manipulate the world economically, and also in technology and with military, to deceive the world into accepting his branding, his marking that will damn you for eternity. That's what's coming. And you don't see pastors preaching that. Instead, we need to be involved in politics. We need to transform. And they even condemn people like me for saying that you shouldn't be involved in these politics. But yet, look at what they've done with this whole moral majority and being involved in the politics of the world. Has it ever, in history, helped the church? No. If you know anything about the history of the church, and you don't have to do a lot of study, just a little bit of study of the history of the church, you'll find that being involved in politics has never been beneficial for the church. I'm not saying that some good can't come out of it, but what I'm saying is, what does Christ tell you to go and do? It's to transform the heart of a person, one person at a time. You go out and spread the gospel to this person, and that society's changed. And then you have a moral society that's, in essence, self-governing. You really don't even, the government just happens to be there to protect it overall. But in reality, as a Christian, we're to love all people, irregardless of what country they're from. I love Christians that are in Mexico. I love Christians that are in Guatemala. I love Christians that are in Argentina. I love Christians that are in Russia, China, Vietnam, Laos, you name it. I love Christians there. I love non-Christians as well, because I want them to be saved, obviously. But I'm saying that my nationalism doesn't dictate who I love or care about. And as Christians, that shouldn't be, I'm going to love an American Christian more than I love a Mexican Christian? No, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Some of the nicest, kindest people I've ever met come from other countries. But yet somehow, they sell this kind of ideal that somehow, we need to make America a Christian government. It's like it's an oxymoron. You can't make a Christian government because by nature, the government is the world and sphere and influence of Satan on this side of Christ's coming and his messianic reign, obviously. The governments of this world are in the hands of Satan. That's why when Jesus was taken up and he was confronted with Satan. What did Satan say? I'll show you the kingdoms of the world, in a moment in time. All these have been given into my hand, right? And I'll give to whoever I wish. He was testing to see if this was really the Messiah, if Jesus really was the Messiah, because obviously he's not omniscient. He doesn't know. He assumed it was with the proclamation of John the Baptist and so forth. I'm sure he had his minions there listening, following John the Baptist, realizing he's probably the voice in the wilderness crying out to make straight the path of the Lord. He probably knew that, and he was probably listening all along. He's not omniscient. He doesn't know all things, and he was testing Jesus, because anybody else would have fell for it. Anybody else would have said, yeah, I'll worship you, but obviously Jesus being God, it's a foolish thing to ask unless Jesus isn't God, which didn't, there's even pastors kind of teach that kind of craziness. No, Jesus, obviously he knew if he was the real Messiah, he's going to decline it because he's God. He's the Son of God. He's going to come, he's going to take a person to triune Godhead. He's not going to say, yeah, let me worship you, Satan, a created being, which I created. He's going to instead say, no, I'm not going to worship you. You worship me. I'm the one who you should be worshiping. I'm God. That's what Jesus said to him. He says, worship the Lord your God only. He was saying that to him. He was pointing at himself probably when he said it. Worship the Lord your God only. That's probably what Jesus was saying to him, pointing at him when he said it. Satan realized he's dealing with the real deal. He's not dealing with a false guy who's just claiming to be the Messiah. He's the real Messiah. This is the guy. And that's why he took him to the next step. Hey, transform these rocks into bread. He realized, hey, he's God. That's why he asked him first if he would worship him. You find out if he's the real deal. And he passed that test. Okay, well now if he's who I think he is, he has the ability to transform matter because he created it all. Okay, changes this rocks into bread. Obviously, he didn't fall for that either. Don't put the Lord your God to the test. Hey, go up and a man doesn't live by bread alone, but by every word proceeds out of the mouth of God. And then, he fully passed the test. He's like, whoa, wait a minute. Let me just make sure that this is the guy. I want to be absolutely sure that this is the one, this is the Messiah who's been prophesied to come, and I've been anticipating as my downfall, the one who's going to crush my head, as I bite his heel, because he understood what God had said in the Garden of Eden. And then he tested him again. Takes him up to the temple and says, hey, jump off of here, and if you do, then the angels will protect you. And he quotes to him, I think it's Psalm 92, a part of it. And it's like, well, no. He's like, don't put the Lord your God to the test. And people can look at that and go, well, that means that don't jump off the test, God. That's true. But also what I think Jesus was saying to us, look, don't put me to the test. I'm God. I don't need to prove myself to you, And he's showing him, you're a sinner and a liar from the beginning, and doing what you're doing is just absolute foolishness. Again, once at that point, Satan is fully assured this is the real deal. He's the Messiah. He's not somebody just claiming to be the Messiah. He's God incarnate in the flesh, the true God man, not the false God man that the Antichrist is going to come and profess himself to be, But that's what's happening in the church, the deception of it, and it's sad when you see these well-known, well-funded pastors up there with huge followings, basically telling people they need to get involved in politics, and somehow that's going to transform the world to make it better for you to be a Christian. No. It's been detrimental to be involved in politics. The moral majority was horrible, and the people involved in it did horrible things. And the people who are involved in it now are doing the same thing, only they spin it a little bit different, make it sound a little bit more palatable or whatever. But at the end of the day, in essence, it's dominionism. In essence, it's a false teaching. And there's nothing wrong with you saying, hey, yeah, we want good government, we could pray for that. But to be involved in it and think that somehow that's going to make it better for you, no, you like the nice house you live in. You like the nice cars you drive. You like the nice food you eat. That's what you're worried about. You're not truly focused on saving people, in essence, really, and leading the church to the truth of Christ and seeking healing in your life and to have them to go out and be ambassadors for the Lord. That's what you should be encouraging them to do. Not go out and vote and become part of the phony, fake Republican Party, which does all kinds of evil, include and get us involved in wars like Afghanistan. It was the Republican Party, by and large, leadership under George Bush, which, by the way, is a complete rhino in my opinion. Not that makes any difference, because the Republican Party is completely corrupt anyway in so many ways. I mean, most of the politicians in the Republican Party are corrupt. That's why they live the lifestyle they live. That's why they accept the benefits that they accept that nobody else gets, and that's why they are lockstep with the Democratic Party, who's been destroying the society for American society and the world for how many years? I mean, you can't just put it all on the Democratic Party. The Republican Party is just as guilty in many ways for supporting it. They're the ones that helped get you involved in Iraq, Iran, all this other stuff. It was the Democratic Party in Vietnam. I mean, you look what they did to Panama. Look what they did to Kosovo. I mean, that's the Democratic Party there. I mean, it's not like one's better than the other. They're both corrupt. And that's what they want. They want total control, manipulation of people's lives, destruction and murder of little children. I mean, how in the world is you Christians say, well, if we just vote these guys in, somehow we're going to have this all right? No, it won't. Stop looking to man to solve your solutions. Look to God. God is going to solve the world's problems. Pray for his kingdom to come. Jesus didn't say, pray that you would bring in and usher in a kingdom that somehow is going to, by men, through the American government or Russian government or Chinese government, is going to bring in. No, he says, pray thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. He was praying for the God's kingdom to be established. His kingdom, his eternal kingdom that's prophesied to come and put an end to it. It's a messianic kingdom that there won't be any evil. He'll rule it with an iron rod, it says. He won't allow for people to be deceivers and evil and committing violent acts and hostile acts against other people. You won't see rape and murder and these kind of evil things happening. That's what we should be praying for. That's what we should be working for as Christians. Pray to put your faith and trust in Jesus Christ and help your fellow man. Love those around you. Not go and support countries that are bombing people and taking over people and supporting them. If the Christians in China stood up and said, no, I'm not going to fall for it. And if the Christians in Russia said, no, I'm not going to stand and fall for it. And if the Christians in America said, no, I'm not going to hate my Christians who are in China and Russia and El Salvador and everywhere else, and people stood together as Christians, you know how powerful the Christian church would be and what we could do in this world? I mean, it's not going to happen, obviously, because we're the governments of the world under the influence of Satan and his dark influences, his power, deceives people, and that's why you have the deceivers in the church leadership roles that are always pushing this kind of nationalistic, whatever, political ease type stuff. And instead of the unity of the church, the true unity of the church, not the false, phony, fake ecumenicalism that's taking place right now, so you can fall under the power of some false pope or, Catholicism. You don't want that. I'm saying truly trusting and believing in Jesus Christ and loving your fellow Christians and striving to help your fellow man around you. That's what needs to be done, not this nonsense that we see happening right now. The church is been deceived so many times and fall victim for it by these false teachers who come in and they sound good, look good, dance nice, sound nice, sing nice, but in the reality they're teaching you lies and deception. Trust and believe in Christ. Repent of your sins. Follow after him. Go and love your fellow man and love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. These are the things that we should, as a church, should be doing. Not, hey, let's get together and form a voting block, declare ourselves the fundamentalist Christian right, or something. It's like, no, it's not what we're supposed to be doing. Instead we need to call out those who are doing evil. When you see the left promoting every form of nonsense in the world, saying it's perfectly okay to kill children, in the womb, and those are the things we should call and say, no, that's complete evil. We're not going to be a part of it. Demand that we're not part of that, and just say, hey, I'm not part of it. I'm not going to be part of it. I'm not going to be part of your institution. Institutionalized murder and depravity and sin, including invasion of other countries. No, I'm not going to serve in that regard. Refuse to go. That's what you should do. Not sit there and say, no, I have no qualms going out killing Afghanistan people or anybody else. That's not our fight. That's your fight. If you want to do that, it's your business, not mine. Instead, we need to send Bibles and food and everything else over there and try to help them. That's what we need to be doing as Christians, not figuring out how we can support them by having our kids join the military and go and bomb people and kill people. That's a false Christian faith. And I would say, no. As Christians, we need to stand up and say, absolutely not. Let's love other people. irregardless of what nationality they are, irregardless of what, because at the end of the day, there's only one race, the human race, in which God created all of us. All of us go back to the same one, Adam and Eve, at the end of the day. And, instead of going around hating other people and letting other people deceive you, oh, well, white man's keeping you down, or, hey, the black person wants to kill you or whatever, it's like, that's a lie. That's all lies from Satan. Trying to deceive you into buying into racism. There's only one race, There's only one race, the human race. And the stuff that they're teaching, the philosophies they're teaching of hate, why be part of that? I mean, be above it and realize that what they're really trying to do is just deceive you into following the lies and deceptions of the evil one, of Satan and his minions, which was to destroy and control you, manipulate you. And that's how they get power. You don't need these politicians the way they're acting. You think these guys you think Nancy Pelosi or Schumer or any of these other kind of people on the right or left, you think that they're great leaders? Do you think the military, and everybody wants to applaud the military, it's like, you think these great military leaders were so intelligent, wouldn't they be brave, and they're really brave, wouldn't these leaders stand up and say, we're not going to send our soldiers over to fight in some foreign war that we know with the actions that we're doing has absolutely no chance of succeeding? Wouldn't they? I mean, it's not like we don't have any history of this. Like, the false things that happened with Vietnam, and they're getting into it, and 58,000 people dead, and the bombings of Kosovo, and the bombings and taking over Panama, and blah, blah, blah. The list goes on and on and on. It's like, at some point, wouldn't military, if they were really brave, wouldn't they just stand up to leaders and say, no, we're not training people to be killers. We're not training your children to be murderers. And no, I'm not going to send them over to a place where we're going to spend the next 20 years and lose blood and treasure and kill off and destroy the minds and hearts and bodies of young American children and destroy the lives of that nation, that whatever nation, the next nation on the list is, so that somehow we can have, get money for our politicians so they can be reelected because they're getting money from Gorman Rupp and, and all these Boeing and all these other organizations. No. A real leader is going to step up and say, no, I'm not doing it. And if I have to resign, I'll resign. But guess what? The guy behind me, he's going to resign too. And the guy behind him is going to resign too. That's what needs to happen. Real leadership needs to stand up and be able to say to the political ruling elite class, no, we're not going to go kill innocent human beings because you have some politically driven globalist agenda that you're trying to achieve. That's what needs to happen. And as Christians, we need to stand up and say, no, I'm not sending you my children. You can arrest me, you can take my children, but they're not going to go fight in your wars. That's what needs to happen. And maybe you'd have a change. And let's start going out and really sharing the gospel, the good news, doing the Great Commission, and stop going out and saying how we can put together a focus group on how we're going to get Christians to be more involved politically so that we can get our agenda passed. So some pastor, from some, 5,000 seat, church congregation can go and be invited to a Washington, D.C. Prayer summit so he can go sit up there with the president, take pictures with, these corrupt criminal politicians and hang it up on his wall like he's a big famous pastor who's achieved some kind of notoriety because he's, rubbing elbows with politicians who are the most corrupt people on the planet. I mean, it's like at some point, people in the church, you might want to wake up. It's pretty amazing to me. That's why you're in Afghanistan. That's why you see innocent children coming back, men, women, children, striving to, fighting to get out of that. The mentality of what's happening over there. They have no idea of Jeffersonian democracy. You're not going to establish that over in the Middle East where they have no foundation of that or history of that. How are you going to get these people to convince them that, their history, especially, is different than Iraq. Iraq's history and their mentality is one of more of an Arab culture. The one in Afghanistan is Pashtun. They're more of a one is local leaders, tribalism, all based upon the ideals and premises of Islam. They have no concept whatsoever. Sharia has no concept, contrary to what all these politicians who have absolutely no idea what they're talking about because the nonsense that they're polluting the world with, who stand up there and say that Islam's a peaceful religion. No, it's not. Islam is completely not a peaceful religion. In fact, it's a political system wrapped in a wrapping of religion. It's all encompassed of religion and politics, one without the other, and law, all wrapped together. Anybody knows that with just a little bit of study. These politicians up there, it's a peaceful religion. No, it's not. Look around the world. Look everywhere it's gone. It's about domination. It's about establishing a political system that allows for you then to have a religious system that then has a legal system that everything must has coalesce together. That's the world that these people know. You know, what some go over there and say, oh, by the way, we're bringing you democracy here because it's been so wonderful for the rest of the world. Democracy can be good, but it's not the end all be all. And what these people have, my goodness, these people live in a totally different world than us and have for centuries. You know, and somehow you're going to go over there and convince them of that? No, you're not. And it hasn't. And anybody who thinks they can, the whole winning the hearts and minds, boy, that's worked really well, hasn't it? That's a failed policy since Vietnam and before that. And they have no intention of it. It's all about money, politics, and games. And people's lives are ruined. And people's lives are destroyed. Small children, how could you live with yourself? How could people who know that they're doing this live with themselves? I have no idea. What's awaiting you? Some of these politicians and military leaders and so forth, you know what's awaiting you? Eternity in the lake of fire. That's what's waiting for you. I pity you. I absolutely pity you. These are the people that are so driven, again, that competition thing. Grew up in sports their whole life probably, whatever, you know, that it just got to win. It's all about us. You know, it's all about me. I got to strive. I got to get that notoriety, that fame. I got to get that plaque on the wall. I got to have people love me. You know, that nonsense that's being taught at a young age and indoctrinated into this mindset that leads to these cruel, dictatorial, destructive people who destroy this world and the people in it. And as Christians, we need to rise above that. What we're called to do is love and cherish other people. Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. What part of that do you not understand? Strive to love and cherish other people. Teach harmony and love and kindness and goodness. That's what you should be teaching your children. Not, hey man, somebody disrespect you, go beat the living crap out of them. You know, that's not Christianity. You can't call yourself a Christian while you're telling somebody, hey, you disrespect me, let's get it on. You know, that's not how it works. That's not what Christianity is. It's about loving other people. It's about not being overcome by evil, but overcoming evil with good. What part of that did you teach your family and your kids? We got to win. We got to win the game, man. Come on. You got to be first. You got to get that big trophy. You know, a trophy is made out of plastic. That you got to get that so people can look at that, 20 years from now and know that you did something, man. You know, it's like he hit the ball in a little leagues, over a fence. I mean, who gives a flying flip? Instead, why don't we love and cherish? Why don't you teach that kid to have kindness in his heart, love in his heart, compassion, be charitable, and these kind of things. This is what you should be teaching your children. Not winning at all costs. Winning, number one. You got to achieve it. You got to get up there. You got to be the president of the company. It's like, the most miserable people in the world are the people that are sitting in those corner offices that think they've achieved something. The reality, when you find most of them, they're drunks. A lot of them are alcoholics, are pseudo-alcoholics. A lot of them live, are taking drugs on the side. Many of them have failed marriages. They're just miserable human beings. And everybody around them is also miserable. They're just waiting for breadcrumbs to fall so they can eat from them. But the reality is, they're miserable human beings. And they're unhappy human beings. And the thing is, if you had the chance to sit down with them and show them, they would absolutely admit it and they would desire something else in their life. If you could show them the truth of Christ. That's where real joy comes from. Loving God and having Him first in your life. Seeking Him first in your life. That's what Christ talked about. A man who seeks his own life loses it. But a man who loses his life for my sake will find it. That's what He's talking about. Learning to let go of this life and the things that you want, your desires, for the things of God. And then true happiness and joy comes in at that point. You realize what's really important. What's really important is God. Your relationship with Him. The one you're going to want to spend eternity with. You think you're going to take an ounce of that money or fame or whatever you think you strive for with you when you step off eternity, and you're one heartbeat away from stepping off into eternity. One foolish act of a drunk driver running into you, or you having a heart attack, or you catching COVID and dying, or whatever million possible ways you could possibly die and step off into eternity. You think any of that is going to matter. that you've fought so hard to and stepped over so many people or on people to achieve. You think that's really going to be what you're thinking about when you're on your deathbed? Do a thought experiment. You're dying right now, you're on your deathbed, and your life is ending. What is it you think you're going to be thinking about? What is it that's going to be on your mind? I absolutely guarantee you it's not, boy, I wish I'd made another dollar. Oh, I wish I just had that other office. I was one floor up more, you know. Wish I had that plaque on the wall, you know, that people could look at 20 years from now. It's going to be in the trash. Somebody's going to throw it away. None of that's going to matter. The only thing that's going to matter is what you did with your life with God and what you did to other people. And you know what America's doing around the world by bombing these places and destroying countries and everything else, I pity it. I really do. I absolutely pity this country. I'm not saying it's everything about this country's bad, because there's a lot of good, but I pity what America's doing around the world. And other countries, well, they're guilty too, trust me. They're just, you know, America's just one of many, but I pity what they're doing. As Christians, we need to stand up and call that out. The leadership of America is corrupt. The leadership of America is destroying lives and families. And we need to call them out on that, and call out America for what they're promoting around the world: depravity, evil, sin. You know, all around the world they're promoting that. We need to call that out as Christians and stop placating. You know, stop being weak in that sense. You need to stand up and say, no, America and the politicians and the political ruling class and what they've been promoting, including the false, phony left church, the liberal church of it, is false, and we need to call them out on it. You know, what they've been promoting is evil. Anyway, pray for the people of Afghanistan. Pray for the families who lost, you know, loved ones in this foolish war, that they can have some kind of peace or rest. Anyway, keep looking up, trust in the Lord. God bless.